Welcome everybody to today's Alzheimer's presentation titled Dementia Conversations. And I am pleased to welcome Savannah Levine and our other host, Ron Evans. Savannah?
Thanks, Melissa. We're always so happy to be here. My name is Savannah Levine. I'm a program and education specialist for the Alzheimer's Association. You are here for Dementia Conversations, and we do have our community educator, Ron Evans, who's going to be talking to you today about it. At the end, stay tuned for more care and support resources, and we will be talking about our walk to end Alzheimer's, and we will make sure we get you handouts for other educational presentations we have, other support groups, as well as a handout specifically related to this presentation. So we're gonna hand it over to Ron right now. Make sure you remain muted throughout the duration of the presentation, and we're also gonna do a Q&A section at the end. Feel free to put your questions in the chat, but we will not answer them until the end of the session. So without further ado, here is Ron.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. And I am just a community educator, which means that I get to do presentations, and Savannah helps me out here with all the technical support. So our topic today is Dementia Conversations. And what that means is when somebody in a family is looking as though they may have dementia, there's certain things that need to be discussed, and it's those conversations relating to doctor visits, driving, and also legal and financial planning that we're going to be focused on today. So let's go to the next slide. And going to the doctor will be our first topic. Everyone who's on Medicare has an annual wellness visit, an annual checkup, and not everybody takes advantage of it. So I'll start by saying that at least there's that one time in the year that everyone should be going. Then we'll be talking about how do we decide when it's necessary to stop driving and how do we deal with that. And then finally, the making of legal and financial plans to cover care needs for the future. Let's go straight to the next slide. So we're going to provide you with some tips on how to break the ice on these difficult topics. We're going to help you plan ahead and build a care team that will communicate well if it's put together well. We're going to give you the opportunity to hear from people who are dealing with these issues themselves. They have already walked the walk, and they're sharing their experience in videos for us today. And finally, we'll let you know about the resources of the Alzheimer's Association and how to connect with us and take advantage of those resources, get help when you need it. Let's go straight to the next one. So to begin with, when this issue of people maybe showing signs that they're getting forgetful, perhaps they're getting confused about where they are at certain times, maybe they've had some incidents in the homes that have caused concern. They forgot that the stove was on. They can't find their keys. And worse still, when you find the keys for them, they don't know what they are. When they don't recognize them as being what the keys are used for. So there's two sides to this, and that is, how do they feel about it and how does everyone else feel about it? And here we've got a table, some slides that I know some of you are not reading these because I know some of you are just listening in. So there's some questions that people or responses that people come up with if they're family members or if they're the person themselves. So a person who's a family member might be told that, mom or father, for example, mother or father is struggling, and the excuse for not getting involved, at least not immediately, is, hey, my sister or my brother lives closer than I do, they're close by and they can help. Another reason for people not choosing to get involved, holding back, is that she or he has always been fiercely independent, and they're not going to appreciate it. They'll get offended if I step in. A more positive response from a family member is, yes, we are beginning to notice some changes, but we're not really sure if there's yet a problem. When the problems are identified to the person who is struggling with any of these issues relating to dementia, they might say, you know, it's okay, I'm all right, I'm fine, don't worry about me. You're busy, you get on with your own life, you don't have to worry about me. They may also use an excuse like, wait until you're my age, you just find that things are a little harder than they used to be, and they just brush it off. All of these are excuses that cause procrastination and delay in getting to understand what the cause of the dementia is. So let's go to the next slide. And sooner is better than later for conversations. If you wait for a crisis, you have a crisis. If you have conversations earlier, you can at least mitigate the severity of the crisis. And the next pop up, please. And that is that we need to develop a plan. You need to have a plan for multiple things, for healthcare, for financial, for caregiving and support. And it takes tact and finesse sometimes to put together a plan and get it implemented. And the next slide is take notes. It's our first suggestion that you should be doing if you're a person who is noticing a family member has got some challenges. Take notes and be specific about the changes that you see. Changes that you see might be memory issues, confusion issues, forgetfulness, causing incidents in the home, and so on. Perhaps somebody's wandered and got lost, had to be brought home by the police or someone else. Be specific about what the event is, and be specific about when, a date, and even a time of day. If you have a log of notes, it helps tremendously when you go to see the doctor. It also helps when trying to share information with other family members. Let's go to the next pop-up, and that is you need to plan conversations and practice in advance. And these could be a conversation focused on getting to the doctor, could be a conversation focused on driving, could be a conversation focused on where the person is going to be living in the future, how they're going to be looked after, how they're going to be cared for, and also the financial aspects. And our next pop-up on this slide is you have to pick a good time. You need to talk when that person that's affected is relaxed and is in a comfortable location, and also time when all the people that are going to be involved in the conversation, both sides, in other words. Let's move on to the next slide, which is what about going to the doctor? Focusing on that, fear, anger, and the concern of stigma can really be a barrier to getting a doctor's visit set up, because people are frightened of the diagnosis. People are concerned about the results of checkups. But you need to get the diagnosis, you need to get the checkups done, and if appropriate, necessary, you need to get the medical help that you need. And if any of you have not ever sat through sort of a basics of what is Alzheimer's, what is dementia, understand that Alzheimer's is a disease that causes dementia, but it's not the only cause. It is recognized as being the major cause of long-term degenerative dementia. But there are lots and lots of other causes of medical health that give the impression that it might be Alzheimer's. But many of those causes are reversible. Medication mix-ups, thyroid gland problems and other fairly simple to treat issues. Let's move to the next slide. This is a video, and Donna is going to be sharing the importance, talking about the importance of getting help.
I think you have to be honest. I think that's the important thing with it. To get a loved one to the doctor. I think you just need to be candid and honest of what are you trying to do. We're trying to understand what we're up against. It's just so important to do that, because you can't battle something that you don't know what you're battling. Again, it may not have been Alzheimer's. It could have been depression. It could have been so many other things. And guess what? There's other things you can do to take care of those issues as well. But that's what you need to be able to do. You can't ignore something. It's not going to go away.
So as Donna says, it's important to know about it. You can't ignore it. It probably isn't going to go away on its own. Let's move on to the next slide. So when you are trying to set up a visit with the doctor, in the conversation that you have to plan and schedule that doctor visit, you need to use words that are most comfortable for the person. Use simple language. A person with dementia is probably experiencing a reduced vocabulary anyway, and you would understand that from their conversation. They're using simpler words. They struggle to find words. They use alternative substituted words that sometimes don't make sense and don't help the conversation. But those are some of the signs that the person is actually struggling with a long-term degenerative dementia situation. And Alzheimer's could be the cause, but it could also be a cause, whatever their condition is, could be caused by something that is reversible. Let's go to the next slide, next pop-up, I mean. And I mentioned earlier, everyone on Medicare has an annual visit. It's free. Use that as an excuse to get a person to the doctor if necessary, on the basis that the insurance company requires it. And let's go to the next slide. One strategy is to actually plan some kind of trip, some kind of treat. Doesn't have to be expensive or glamorous. That's somewhere fairly close to where the doctor's office is, and you schedule a doctor's visit on the same day. And that way, you're not just going out that day to go to the doctor. That person is more likely to focus on the treat and be excited to do that. And, oh yeah, while we're out here, let's go see doctor. Let's move to the next slide. And here's where challenges come, and that is getting the family to communicate and share their concerns, and also be able to present questions. And that means that somebody in the family probably has to take notes about what everybody is asking. What are the concerns that others have? So don't leave this up to one person in a family to try and second guess what everybody else might be concerned about, and have a written list so that you can run through it and check everything off when you're at the doctor's office. Take the logbook along with you of all the notes that you've made about this person, the events that they've experienced, and it's easy to show that to the doctor, and the doctor scanning down through it can get a lot more information more quickly than trying to have it read out to them or spoken to them. Let's go to that last pop-up on this slide. So what is a therapeutic fit? Well, I kind of alluded to one suggestion, which was to say that the annual wellness visit is required by the insurance company, the health insurance company. And that's kind of partially true, but you might yourself come up with some ideas without being too unethical of how to persuade somebody. You know what their likes and their dislikes are. And by the way, medical conditions like, let's go see if we can get this niggling problem that you have with your skin or whatever it is. Let's go get those little lesions checked out. That's not a fear, but it's just suggesting that you be creative about coming up with suggestions and reasons for why we need to go get that annual visit done, or a special visit if necessary. Let's go to the next slide. Now we come to a big challenge of driving. Asking somebody to give up their driving privileges is a huge deterrent in itself for people to go to the doctor, because many people have heard if the doctor diagnoses you with dementia, they'll take your driver's license away. And it's partially true. They will. The doctor is required to report it to the DMV, but the DMV always gives the individuals an opportunity to prove their ability. Just so happens I'm a driving school instructor, and just this week I watched a 91-year-old gentleman with his walking cane check in to get his drive test done. His daughter from out of state was there with him. He took his drive test, and he was walking with a walking cane, so there wasn't much extra spring in his step, but the smile on his face because he passed and he gets to retain his driver's license was a gift, you might say. So people shouldn't be scared of these things, but we know that they are. Now, here's what we are typically seeing, of course, with a person who is elderly and perhaps should be giving up their driving privileges, that you hear that they've had accidents, you know they've had accidents, maybe traffic tickets, scrapes on their car, just minor scrapes, just an indication that they're not judging things correctly. And if you're riding with somebody, you might notice that they're making a lot more mistakes while they're driving. Let's go to the next, which is a video, and Chris is going to tell us about how he and his father dealt with this issue.
There's no exact answer on this is when you stop driving. You could tell when coming up to an intersection, as an example, the ability to understand what's going on around you was starting to deteriorate a little bit. Being on the highway with cars on both sides becomes a little bit more difficult. And first and foremost, the safety of everybody in the car, as well as other drivers on the road. You think about that, and you want to make sure you're not putting anybody in danger. But then the difficult part is telling your dad, who you love, and you know he loves driving, and he's used to it, and he can no longer do that. But then even then, taking the keys away full time was very difficult. The doctor was very helpful in just saying, medically, you can't do this anymore. But my mother had the hardest time with this because she knew how much this was going to hurt him as well. And this is one of the first things that we had to deal with as a family when it came to telling my dad that he had to stop doing something because of this disease. That meant a lot to him.
Okay, so tough challenge having to talk to a parent and tell them that they probably are going to lose their driver's license. We understand that. So you got to plan ahead before there is an accident. You move to the next pop-up, and you need to express your concern about what you've been seeing, what you've noticed, and be gentle as you can, but you've got to be very firm and point out what the reality is, that it's not just their driving privilege that's at stake here. It could be somebody else's life if they were to cause an accident that was serious enough. And the next pop-up is you have to appeal to their sense of responsibility so that they show their and recognize their concern for other road users, for pedestrians, and anyone who might be in the way of their car, as well as other people's property. And the next pop is a video. This is Sheila, and she's going to talk about how she handled the issues with her father.
Some tips on having the conversation is pointing out, especially for my father, the potential danger to others that it may cause if he's behind the wheel. And, just talking about it from the standpoint that this is not only the best thing for you, but this is also the best thing for others around you. And these are some of the alternatives, making sure that, this is what's going to happen, having a plan. If mom can't take you, then Uncle Thomas or will be here to take you, and we will make sure that you're getting out of the house and that you're doing some things. So, presenting the bad news, but then also presenting the plan. And for my father, that's really, really important to have a plan.
So Sheila talked about a plan and alternate plans for how to get about if you don't have your own car. What are the transportation situations where you live, where they live? Where do they have to get to? Are they able to use bus services, van services? Who is there that nearby that can provide them with rides? What about services like Uber and Lyft? Taxis, of course. Is there a senior service, a disabled persons and seniors persons service available from the county, for example, that provides van services where you can, just like medical appointment van services, you can schedule a ride to get you from your home, be picked up at home, taken to wherever your appointment is, and learn to deal with all the things that you want to be able to manage, but differently. By the way, it's worth pointing out just how expensive it is to keep a car on the road, insured, taxed, licensed, and all the maintenance costs and things. And sometimes if you do a plan properly, you can show that there is a significant money saving by not having the car. Let's go to that last pop-up. And sometimes you do need to incorporate, that is to borrow, as it were, the voice of an esteemed professional, which is what the slide says. You may have to ask your doctor for a written letter, ask the doctor to effectively make a statement in writing that driving should be restricted. Many elderly people are used to the concept of not driving after dark or not driving on the freeways, two limitations that still allow them to be able to get to a lot of places, even if they are still driving, but keeping the driving down and taking out the risk of high-speed freeways, taking out the risk of driving in the dark. And many elderly people have eyesight issues, of course, so that makes is a stepping stone toward potentially losing your driver's license in the future, because none of us unfortunately get younger. Let's go to the next slide. And here's Wendy, and she's going to talk about how to use empathy for us.
Talking to somebody about stopping driving, I think it's most important to understand that that is tied to someone's independence more than most things. And so by saying you can't do this anymore is like telling the person, it's like ripping away their independence. And that doesn't feel good for anybody. I know that I've always tried to put myself in that situation. What would I think if someone was saying this to me? You don't get to do this anymore. And how would I feel? And how would I want somebody to talk to me about this? And so if you try to I think sometimes too many people try to approach it as, very punitive. And I'm doing what's right for you. So why don't you understand, without really turning the tables and putting themselves in that position, understanding, how helpless that feels to take those things away. It's important to be thoughtful about what that experience is like for the individual.
So moving to the next slide, as Wendy just mentioned, you need to use empathy, and you want to show a person that there are ways in which you can maximize their independence, even if they are giving up their driving privileges. What are the options? What are the choices? And how do you plan for it all? So moving on to legal and financial planning. The next slide will tell us, it's Chris again. He's going to share with us the realities, unfortunately, that families face when it comes to recognizing that dementia is an issue.
Financially, this disease will increase the cost of living. It's just a fact. So planning for those extra costs is that much more important than what you were planning for before. And so you have to review everything that's in place, see what changes need to be made, both legally and financially, and you have to monitor that going forward afterwards too.
So it's a harsh reality, but finances are something we just can't avoid, regrettably. Moving to the next slide. So, you know, as a child, a son, one of several children of a parent who has dementia, the legal and financial planning issues are huge to have to face. In our own family, fortunately, my older brother stepped up and became primary for everything, with my sister, younger sister, being secondary to all decisions, and also to actually being there for my mom, or our mother, I should say. So yes, there's a lot of reluctance to get involved in their personal dealings. We feel uncomfortable about it. We feel we're intruding. And in many cultures, people feel it's a disrespectful thing to have to ask the parents to hand over, as it were, the details of all their bank accounts and everything else that needs to a power of attorney person used to have access to. So I mentioned power of attorney. That's the legal side, in terms of somebody has to be appointed as a power of attorney. It can be multiple people. Sometimes the jobs of powers of attorney are split out. Healthcare, it can be one power of attorney. Financial, legal responsibility be another power of attorney responsibility. Families need to talk about it and get proper counsel on it, because without proper legal advice, it's very easy not to make the right decisions and to make determinations, choose plans that are not going to be in the best benefit of your loved one or the family in general. So getting a meeting to focus on legal and financial planning is really, really important. Let's go to the next slide. Julie is going to talk about how to deal with people regarding finances.
Here's what I've come to after all of this. That it's the most loving and kind thing you can do for them is to be honest with them and say, this is like a really scary thing. And I feel a lot of discomfort bringing this up to you. But you know, I tell them, if you're going to be the one who's going to take them on this journey, then you have to tell them, I'm going to be here on this journey with you. And there are things that we have to do to get this in place. We're going to go on this journey together. I've told you I'm going to be here with you till the end. So let's get this ready. It's like we're going to go on an ocean ship. We've got to get things packed up. We've got to figure out what we're taking with us. We got to get ready. And the things that we have to get ready, we have to make sure that we know which doctors you're going to be using. I need to get this signed, okay? So that if you go in there and they have to do surgery, for example, I got to have this durable power of attorney for healthcare for you. I have to have this worked out. Okay. Now, if for some reason, okay, you need to go to rehab after something, I have to have these documents here, the financial stuff, so I can get these things taken care of for you while this is going on. I don't want to have anything get in the way of us being able to progress and keep doing this. I said, it seems hard because it's hard in our heads. You know, everybody's read about people who've stolen from elderly people, who've done these horrible things. But if you're the person who's approaching this with loving kindness and compassion, and you're willing to take this person on this journey, you're not doing a bad thing. You're doing the right thing by talking to them about it. And you approach it from the standpoint of, I'm here for you. I'm doing this for you. We're going to do this together. And I'm going to help you through this. And these are the tools that I need to make sure that we can do this.
Go to the next slide. So begin by explaining that this is something that you are sharing with them, that you're in this together. And some of these presentations are targeted, of course, for people who have family members that have dementia or dementia type issues, look as though they might have. But I also recognize that on our call today, you've got a lot of people who may be aware of what it's like to have aspects of dementia, because people with dementia do have good awareness in the early stages. And so let's turn this around also and say that sometimes we need the family benefits from the person with dementia actually making life easy by asking for help. So you're not just offering, we're not just giving guidance to those who are offering help and trying to take a person on a journey, but you may be asking for your family to come on this journey with you. And so you also will have lots of concerns and lots of questions, but you can be cooperative, and that makes life a lot easier. And so the person who is asking somebody who has dementia, a parent, for example, or a sibling, you know, I need you to pull these documents together, as Julie explained, and I need them so that I can do whatever needs to be done for you. Let's move to that next bullet. And so there are standard plans that are out there. Legal advisors can provide you with those things. Many healthcare professionals can point you in the right direction for your local resources. And of course, we're all these days getting more and more familiar with reaching into the internet, doing Google searches and so on. But you've got to be careful how you choose who your advisors are. And that's something that every family has to, unfortunately, go along their own journey with. Let's go to the next bullet. And so these are big issues. And so if you try to deal with everything all at once, it's not going to happen. And that's a challenge when you've got people who are living out of state. When they come in to visit, they only have a limited amount of time to do things. And that often results in whoever the local support is for the person who has dementia having to shoulder the biggest responsibilities. But wherever you can, try to have multiple meetings, break things down into small chunks, and even meet in different locations, so it doesn't seem like it's a regular ritual or anything like that. Let's go to that next bullet. And there may be people outside of your family that you need to involve. You can reach out to senior centers if you have connections with senior centers. You can reach out to the guidance counselors in any healthcare organization, hospitals, and so on, as well as your doctor's offices. And let's go to the next. So dealing now with building a care team. Logically, we start with our own doctor, right? Well, the family actually is the first point, but we know that there is a connection usually with the primary care physician. So let's put the next layer up. And we have a medical team. And what's the next layer? We have peers. This is where referrals are important. Your medical team usually starts with a primary care doctor, but you do have to ask for referrals because most people are not being cared for by a geriatrician, not being cared for by somebody who is really experienced in dealing with elderly people. And if that is the case, then referrals to neurologists and geriatricians are really important. If a person is still working, there may be support that you can reach for in their workplace. And next layer is, thank you, local community resources. And we'll talk about the Alzheimer's Association as a resource, but don't overlook daycare centers and the resources of other local community resources. So the next slide does bring us to the Alzheimer's Association. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Savannah and ask her to talk about the Alzheimer's Association resources.
Thank you so much, Ron. That was so much good information. As you were talking about some of these different topics, I realized that I need to plug that we have an entire driving safety center on our website at alz.org. You can find a lot of good information there. There's videos there going over different scenarios because it is such a difficult conversation. So please go ahead and check that out. And as you were talking about legal and financial planning, there is legal and financial planning education through the Alzheimer's Association. You can find it at training.alz.org. I'll put that in the chat later. But we also occasionally have attorneys and financial planners who will deliver that education. And so if you follow us and our education, you can see that we do offer that. And it's very valuable information, at least to get you started. So all that's to say, we have lots of resources that you can find. All on our website. You can see that we have something called a Community Resource Finder, which is a partnership that we have with AARP by zip code to find different things in the community, like if you needed an elder law attorney or you needed in-home care, you can find that on the Community Resource Finder at alz.org/CRF. So those are different opportunities. ALZ Connected is a way to get connected on our website where caregivers can connect via chat to other caregivers. Those with Alzheimer's can connect with those with Alzheimer's around different sort of topics, and you can read it or you can post things. So that's an opportunity as well. So we have an entire section dedicated to caregivers, an entire section dedicated to those with Alzheimer's. And I always like to say, use our search function because there's so much that we have to offer. It's really endless. So when you go to alz.org, there is a search function. So if you ever wanted to look up something regarding driving or wandering, you would be able to find it quickly that way. We also have our 24/7 helpline. It's in over 200 languages and it's accessible 365 days a year. So when you call in, you can reach a master clinician on the other side of the line. Again, it's for those with Alzheimer's. It's for those who are sort of maybe saying, do I have some type of cognitive impairment or cognitive decline? You can ask questions. For caregivers, you can call in as well as professionals. So it really is an opportunity to speak with someone who knows a lot about Alzheimer's and other dementia at any time of day or night. So that's an opportunity. Please put it in your phone, write it down, make sure you have it because it is an incredible resource, whether you need it right now or you'll need it later or someone you know will need it. So it's really important to do that. We also have support groups. So we have support groups for those who are in the early stage. We have support groups for caregivers at all different times of day. Right now, we're still mostly doing virtual support groups. There are a couple opportunities in person, and I'll put my information in the chat if you want to reach out about that. Again, so many different education opportunities, whether it's on demand at training.alz.org or a live one like this. So you should be looking out for the calendar that we will get to you, because it has lots of our regional opportunities virtually. So there's different ways to get involved with the Alzheimer's Association. So we're the Alzheimer's Association California Southland chapter. And the reason I say this is because we are a nationwide nonprofit, but we do things on the ground locally. So we do have a walk to end Alzheimer's in the San Fernando Valley. It is October 17th, and it will be, there's a virtual opportunity as well as an in-person opportunity. And later we're going to have Ron share a little video around that, but you can go to alz.org/walk. Again, that's alz.org/walk to get involved with that opportunity. There's also volunteering opportunities. Ron is a very dedicated volunteer as a community educator. You can also get involved as a support group facilitator or even a community representative in your area. We're always looking for volunteers, even in the virtual space. We have opportunities, are limited right now in person, but we do have some. We also have the longest day. It's another fundraising opportunity. It is year round, but the height of it is in June, literally on the summer solstice. And we shine the most light into the world on that day. The idea is that you'd be able to do a creative fundraiser. So something like knitting or, selling cookies or something like that, where you could raise money in a sort of different way. We also have lots of advocacy efforts. So if your thing is that you want to be working on legislative policies and advocating for those with Alzheimer's and other dementia and the caregivers, we have an entire arm called AIM, AIM, that is dedicated to working with local, state, and federal policymakers. And Trial Match is an opportunity. It's a free clinical studies matching service. So if you ever wondered what it would be like to be in a clinical study, you can fill in your information, and clinical studies where you match up would contact you. So it's not necessarily pharmacological. So some have to do with medications, but some do not. So that's alz.org/trial match is the opportunity to get involved with a free clinical study. You can actually be a healthy volunteer. You do not have to have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's to register for the trial match. And that's because they need those with a healthy volunteer, healthy brains. They're always doing, maybe comparisons. So they need everyone, and that will still help the research. So I think we're at the point where we are going to do the Q&A, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Ron is going to share his screen if we're still going to do that, and he can play that short video for the walk. So Ron, do you have the sharing capabilities?
My computer just crashed, and I just called in on second using my handheld. Hang on one second. My computer looks like it's coming back to life, but
we don't have to. That's sort of, it was a, if we could do it, it would be great, but don't worry about it, Ron. Let's move on to the Q&A section.
I can believe
Okay.
it. My screen went blue.
All right. If we're moving on to the Q&A, then I'm going to stop the recording
Okay.
right now. So let's just take a minute.
Perfect.
Okay.